Ladies and gentlemen, who was that just came in? YMH. Hey, welcome back. Really appreciate it. I recognize that. YMH. How are you, sir? I'm good, thank you. Better than I deserve. Better than I deserve, YMH. And you? Come one, come all. Whoever's watching the channel, don't be shy. Come in, come in. Good, good. Educate me again. What part of town are you coming from? I forgot. And I'm struggling to Point Link. Good morning. Magandang umaga. Maayong buntag. Well, in the Philippines, it's gabi. Good evening. How was your dinner, Point Link? And what was for, what is it again? Dinner in Tagalog is oh my gosh, I forgot. Udto? Panauto? Educate me again, Point Link. Dinner? Paniuto? Don't laugh. Teach me. Panihapon, but the prefix is incorrect. Panihapon, paniuto. Something like that. Dinner. Oh, Point Link, are you there? Hapunan. Wait. I was taught something else. It's something hapon, something uto. I know, that's why I'm not. Are you teaching me Bisaya or Tagalog, Point Link? It's something like what I was saying, but I'm confused. Panihapon, there, you see? Panihapon, I was right. Panihapon is dinner? What is lunch and what is breakfast? Oh my gosh, you're so confusing. So it's pani hapunan or just hapunan is dinner? Specify, dear. Al-musal. Oh, why was I taught something else? I remember al-musal. Tanghalian is lunch and panihapon is dinner. Now it's hapunan. You see, it's so confusing. Which one is it? Panihapon or hapunan? This is like speaking to my wife. It's like I ask her the same and she confuses me. Then she gets mad at me for not understanding. Like, you have to be specific. You're teaching Tagalog, so you have to. Okay, and what is the other version? So panihapon is the Bisaya version? There, you see? You got to be specific, especially in chat. Chat is hard to figure out unless you're very specific. Okay. Yeah, you can't answer. This guy probably voted for Trump. I hope you did too, Jepper. Don't tell me you voted for the other camp. I should react to chat AI? Yeah, I would imagine. It's like people that make those comments. This guy probably voted. I don't know if that's you're being facetious or you're actually just making a statement, Jepper. Anyways, good morning to you too. Yeah, and what link did you get that from? State your sources there, Jepper. What do you mean he fired the Supreme Court? Newsmax. He fired the whole Supreme Court? So like they're all out of a job? So we have no more Supreme Court until further notice, or what? Yeah, right. So how's your morning there? I'm assuming it's morning where you are, Mr. Jepper. Have you been on the channel before? I'm noticing your profile pic is a diver bell, yet seems like I remember somebody in here before with prior military or something as a diver, or maybe I'm totally off. From every English movie and games. Where are you from, YMH? Are you in India? I don't remember. $11 people watching. Come in, guys, gals. Hoorah. Maybe I should wear my my cover, and that'll identify me further. Right? I'm normally wearing it, and I don't know why I didn't put it on, but I'll do it anyways. Myanmar, that's right. Okay, YMH, I remember now. You were telling me about the difficulties there in Myanmar. Hoorah, Mike. Praise God for the military. So back to Jepper. Have you been on the channel before, Jepper? Seems like I recognize your diver bell profile. 15 people watching. Come in, guys. Right on, Mike. How old are you? With a capital T, right, Mike? Is it? Oh, you're 47. Okay. That's right. Well, I was reviewing one of my prior live streams and listening to the end of it. I'm actually kind of cutting a section of it so I can do a short from it. It was on why works doesn't work. Let's see if I can put together a minute long or less condensed version of that conversation. Why works don't work. What's new, Mr. Mike Wheat and YMH? What's going on? What's the weather like in Myanmar? I don't know. I just heard about it. Jepper just commented about that. Did you hear the same, or are you just reading what Jepper said earlier? Weemart. Wait, me art. I called you Weemart. Oh, you did see that, yeah. That he is capital L, right? Capital C, capital L. Because what? Tata Digong, a former president, hoping that Mr. President Trump help him and send him back here in the Philippines. No, I didn't hear about that. Talking about the son of what's his name? That's okay. I'm going to call you Weemart only because it's easier to say. So the most recent president that was elected is now arrested? All right, Mike. Thanks, brother. Hey, don't forget the thumbs up if you didn't already. That'll help put the channel out in front of more people. Oh, that was your former president. Again, I'm confused. The most recent president was arrested, point blank, or the prior president before was arrested? What, did he escape there for asylum? I can almost hear that whispered. Nobody can spell it or describe it unless you've heard it. Yeah, hoorah, whispered. How about you? I'm looking at your profile picture. What is that? What is that? A map or? I have no idea what that is. Wow, good for you, whispered, for recognizing. Far and few between come on and actually get it right. Oh, no way. Dude, come on. Oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps. I'm serious. Bro, who did you relieve? Were you over there in 2004, 2005? Or did you come on in 2005? Oh my gosh. I'm trying to remember who relieved us, and I'm wondering if it was 2-3. Who's the battalion out of Ohio? 3-5? Or, God, I always forget who relieved us. Oh my gosh, I'm literally getting goosebumps and emotions inside me. Isn't that weird? Bro, talk to me. I love that. I recognized that the minute you typed it. You got to be there to hear it. A battalion of Marines all saying that at once. You just can't explain it. True story. I was a transplant planted with the 123 Marines when I was over there. So it was my first deployment with a battalion of Marines. So I was blue side, prior to this. And when I first heard that sound, I was on the rooftop of my FOB there at FOB Heat. And we just got there. So we were all kind of like taking learning our positions, our daily routine. The guys going on the rooftop to man their posts, the OPs, and we were discovering the rooftops. And so I was upstairs checking out the roof, walking, the length of the building. And all of a sudden we started, what was it? We started receiving incoming small arms from somewhere. And the whole, whether it was small arms or a mortar or whatever it was, I forget. Everybody just lit up. And it's like the whole camp, the whole FOB just erupted in this roar of that. And I was like, whoa, what the heck? And these Marines are running over to the edge of the rooftop and taking cover down below. And I'm on the gravel top on my face, trying to figure out what's going on. But I just remember that uproar. It's like everybody did it all at once. That was my initiation to that roar. Whispered, are you still there? Oh, here we go. Jacob Frank, Weimart, that what he did, or the texts in the Talmud that are so anti-Christian. These are not very well known, and I think it is important for Christians to talk about. What is that? Educate me, Weimart. You should talk about Jacob Frank. Who's Jacob Frank? The texts in the Talmud that are so anti-Christian. Well, I don't even know what you're referring to, Remart, but here's my response to that is, If it ain't in the Word of God, in the truth, in the Bible, then it's really not worth talking about. It's just a distraction. It's like people wanting to say, oh, did you hear about the books that weren't included in the Bible? And it's like, yeah, I heard about them, but no interest in bringing them up. Yeah, whispered, I got out before they took 2-3 down. I'm a boot compared to you. When you say they took 2-3 down, what are you referring to there? I'm not familiar. I'll be dang. I keep forgetting, that 20 years have passed. But wow, tell me your story. How did you become a doc? And what brought you that route? I can tell you mine here after you tell me. Isn't that, I forgot the term, but 1, 3, and 2, 3 were discontinued. Oh, okay. We could use whatever word, disbanded or whatever term they use. Yeah. Well, I have to look it up again. I always struggle with the unit that relieved me. Was very unfortunate what happened to them. Disbanded, is that the word? Yeah. The unit that relieved us, they got hammered. It was crazy to hear what happened to them. They lost like 45 people. And I had a corpsman, a doc, who relieved me. And when he first got there, everybody was with that deer in the headlight looks, probably similar to the way I looked when I first got there. And this young corpsman literally like walked up and grabbed my blouse, and he's like, can I buddy up with you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I look at his name tag, his nameplate, and we introduced each other, and he shadowed me and I showed him around the FOB. And that unit ended up losing 45 guys. And, here we spent 7 months and we lost 4. And 2 of them was due to a motor vehicle accident, head-on, Mercedes-Benz and a Humvee. Killed the driver and the passenger. And the other 2 were an IED that blew up a Humvee. So 4 out of 600 thereabouts compared to 45. And I was just like, what happened? They were holding the same cover as we were, at FOB Heat and the Haditha Dam. And yet, obviously, something went down after we went home. And it was, yeah, although the corpsman that shadowed me, he survived. I actually reunited with him by phone or text or both. And he was telling me the story, and he said it was horrible. And I just went, good Lord, I'm so sorry. Yeah, he said it was really bad. Steven, what's up, brother? Hey guys, don't forget to like, if you would, before you leave. Yeah, so when you came in, I automatically assumed that you were part of 2-3, and then I realized, oh, okay, wait, 20 years have passed. There's been many deployments since then. Awesome. So, yeah, back to you, Whispered. So you're out now, 2014, 2021. You did 7 years. I ended up doing 8. My contract was 8 years. And Iraq was the catalyst for me getting out. Yeah, I had no more business nor desire to be running around with the Marines, more than likely in Afghanistan next. That was the scuttlebutt when I got home, or before I got out of the service. So when I heard that, I said, "Oh, praise God." Yeah, Iraq was the reason for me, saying, "Thank you very much. Time to go." And of course, I kicked myself. My 20 years would have ended in 2019. And I thought, gosh, I would have had a retirement pension. And some of my unit members who didn't get deployed, mostly the girls, actually, they ended up staying, and some of them are chiefs now, and or retired as chiefs. And it's okay. It was God's will for me to get out of there. And I'm glad I did. I was 45 years old when my contract expired. I'll tell you my enlistment, how that happened. And I was a new husband and a new daddy, second time around, for both. And I decided, yeah, I can't be kicking around the hills of Afghanistan, with a Marine Corps unit. So. And big question I have is, did you know the Lord before you went to I don't know if you went to Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm going to assume Afghanistan or other, because I didn't when I was over there, unfortunately. Do you want glory or do you want your brothers? Wow. Your staff sergeant said that to you? Wow. I talk about, of course, hindsight. If I had only known, if I had only known the Word of God like I know it now, over in Iraq, what a opportunity that would have been to glorify Him, to just preach the gospel to all those kids over there, everybody, even my teammates. I could have just had an endless evangelical opportunity for 7 months. I'll be dang. Gosh, I got a story about First Sergeant. When you get a chance, look in my playlist under paramedicine. I think it's paramedic or military. It's one of the two or both. I've got a short video on there of my First Sergeant. I actually have the whole video. It's a full length video, long version video of my experience. One of my experiences over in Iraq, and when I ended up treating First Sergeant. First Sergeant Hoover, as a matter of fact. And my prior encounter with First Sergeant, I'll tell you the story. I don't think I made a video about that one, although I do have, I believe, on my blog that I started when I got back from Iraq. I'll put the the website, the blog spot, if I can remember. Oh my gosh, I can't forget this. I'm gonna have to look it up. Wait. I think it's, oh my gosh, I'm questioning myself now. I think it's Doc MacKay at blogspot.com. I don't know why I'm questioning. I don't know if there's a 6-2 after it. See if this works. I wrote some after action stories when I got back from Iraq. Oop. Sorry. It's not at. It's docmackay.blogspot.com. Forgot. I'm typing with an Xbox controller, so forgive me here. That's my keyboard and my mouse here. Yeah, .blogspot.com, not at. See if that works for me. I don't know if you can go there and see if that works. docmackay.blogspot.com. Yeah, when I first got to Iraq, I ended up getting myself into trouble, of all things. 42 years old, and I was getting myself in trouble. And I left my 9mm on the deck, and I walked away from it like 10 feet, and I came back. Make a long story short, first sergeant picked it up and hid it from me. And when I got back, it was gone. And I was freaking out, thinking, I can't believe this. I just got to Iraq and my weapon's missing. And it was in the holster, around I had a buckle around my waist and around my leg to keep it, stable. You know the drill. And we were doing some construction on the site when we first got there. And it was hammer and nail type stuff. And I turned around to get some nails, and I walked away 10 feet and came back. It was gone. Well, first sergeant ended up picking it up. Thank God. And eventually I discovered who had it. He brought it out from behind him and said, looking for this, Doc? And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like I was relieved, but at the same time, embarrassed. And so he said, you ever fill sandbags before? And I said, nope. He said, well, let me show you. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, it was 113 degrees at that point, end of August. And he took me out in the scorching heat, and he showed me how to fill a sandbag. And he says, I want 50 of them. Yeah, 50. And the mortar pit is waiting for him, and you're to carry him over to the mortar pit. It was no more than 50 yards, but still, how much does one sandbag weigh? Like 50 pounds. So it took me 6 hours to get all that done in that heat. And first sergeant even said to me, after scolding me, he confided in me and said, hey, Doc, this weather's dangerous. Be careful. He said, if you need to take a break, you take as many breaks as you need to, but get it done. I don't care how long it takes. I said, Roger that. So 6 hours later, I got that done. And so that was my intro to FOB Heat, literally heat. And Fast forward, First Sergeant ended up getting injured on a patrol through the city of Heat. He ended up receiving shrapnel wounds from, they're not sure what it was, to his scapula, his shoulder blade, and his lower calf. And I just assisted another corpsman in carrying him to the Humvee. And then we bandaged him in the back of the Humvee as we were heading out. And then he eventually got flown to wherever they flew him to via a Black Hawk helicopter. And I think it's technically an HH-60 helicopter, the medical conversion of the Black Hawk. And I didn't realize it, but somebody on the rooftop of the FOB was videoing the flight out of, or I should say the carry out to the helicopter, and then the helicopter taken off. And they posted that video online, and I happened upon it in my search. So I clipped that portion, the helicopter portion, and incorporated it into my video. And at the very end of the video, after my storytelling, I showed that clip of the 3 or 4 of us that carried First Sergeant out to the helicopter, but then I stayed behind because the corpsman that took my place wanted me to take some photos of him doing the process. So he gave me his camera, and I stayed behind and got down on, I took a knee like 100 yards before the helicopter, and I snapped some pictures of him as he was loading him into the helicopter. So that was the video that somebody was on the rooftop of the one of the buildings at the FOB videoing the whole extrication. And so it was pretty neat to see myself. Literally, you'll see it when you watch it. You know, I'm with the group going out there, and all of a sudden I stay behind, and I use an audio in the video that describes what I'm doing, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, good old First Sergeant. It's like that was my intro and my outro of my experience with First Sergeant. Oh, and in the Humvee, I'm sorry, in the 7-ton on the way back to the FOB, it was butt cold, probably freezing with the wind chill below freezing. And, you know, we were just in our blouses and our BDUs and maybe a liner underneath. So all of us were cold, and he was not only injured, but, you know, the effects of being injured. He was really starting to shake pretty violently in the back of the 7-ton. So just, you know, my instinct was to keep him warm. How am I going to do that? So I said, you know, body to body is how I'm going to keep him warm. So I literally, I said to him, I said, First Sergeant, nothing personal. And I said, I'm gonna wrap myself around you and keep you warm. And while I was like literally cheek to cheek with him, he says to me in my ear, "Hey Doc, I won't tell." What did he say? "I won't tell your wife if you won't tell mine." And I thought, oh my God, only First Sarge would come up with something like that. So we laughed together as we were boogieing. I mean, amazing how fast those 7-tons can accelerate. We ended up stopping, and they transferred First Sergeant into a Humvee where they had some morphine, and that's what he was asking for. And I didn't have any. The other doc didn't have any, or something like that. So they transferred him into a Humvee, and then they took him the rest of the way to the FOB. And then they prepared to flight him out of there. But he did fine, as far as I know. He just got a free ticket out of the Al Anbar province. Well, it wasn't free, but... Whispered, if you're still there, it was the most boring camp out of my life, being there at FOB Heat, because, as you know, unless somebody's sick or injured, we're not doing anything. And it's a fortunate thing for the Marines, but unfortunate for us because, what do? I was handing out Motrin and doing albuterol treatments to the smokers that ended up with the flu while we were over there, more than anything. And treating infections, some bizarre bacteria that was resistant to what was the antibiotic? The catch-all antibiotic. Gene in the jungle, Musta. Yeah, and so anyways, first sergeant's treatment. There was one other instance where a VBIED rocked the entire FOB out at the gate, and that injured some Iraqis. And I ended up just doing an assessment on those guys. And then a bad guy was brought in towards the end of the deployment, and he was, as morbid as us corpsmen can be. Yeah, he was pretty impressive as far as how many M16 rounds he had in him. What is the M16? The 5.67, 5.62, 7.62, 5.65. What is the M16? I should know this. Anyways, he had like 16 entry wounds. 5.56. Thank you. Yeah, he had I think we counted 16 5.56 wounds. He was agonal. He was dead or dying, about to take his last breath. Still, his diaphragm was still drawing, but he wasn't drawing any air in. He had so many wounds, everything but a head wound he had. And they brought him to our FOB, which is a primitive emergency room, and we don't have anything more than a laryngoscope and IV bags as far as being advanced. Oh, and the commanding officer, neurosurgeon, Dr. Willis, he tried to put a central line in his neck, and to no avail. And I tried to intubate him, and I couldn't get in his mouth. He was just biting down super hard, and we didn't have paralytics or anything like that. Not that any of that would have done any good. It was just an opportunity to practice. Hence the term practicing medicine, right? And I tried to give my fellow corpsmen that just got there from our, the relieving battalion. They were all standing around like deer in the headlight. And I was like offering everybody, I said, come here, guys, opportunity to innovate right here. Said, you're probably not going to get this chance over in Iraq. Nobody wanted to do it. And I was like, okay. So I tried, and that was to no avail. So, Matt, what's up, Matthew? Gene, if you're still there, sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you. Oh, you just answered. Mabuti po. Naman, salamat. What are you doing, Gene? Are you asleep yet? Wait, are you in Philippines, Gene, or are you OFW? Oh, OFW is overseas foreign workers, for the people that don't know what that means. Boy, that's a pretty picture. Is that a wedding dress? Okay, sorry guys. My battery just died, and I had to replace the battery. Stand by. Let me plug in this battery. Okay. Is that better? Can you still hear me? Check, check. Hey, 24 people. Come in. Who's out there? Don't be shy. I'm just telling war stories, literally. Uh-oh. What's going on, Gene? Are you sick? Let me reformat my... I gotta reposition everything here. The battery died. Yeah, in the Philippines, Matt, it's I don't know what part of the US you're in. Oh, you're in Alabama. So it's like 13 hours difference for you. What time is it, Matt? Is it 10 or 9:49 a.m.? It's 10:49 here. Yeah, it's 13 hours difference. It's literally on the other side of the world. So if you just add 12 or subtract 12, for the Philippines, it's add 12. So it's already just before midnight, or 1 hour before midnight over there in the Philippines. No. Let me answer that though. Yeah, because I'm at work to carry the heavy thing. Oh no. Take some Motrin or some Tylenol, dear. Something. Yeah, Central Time. Yeah. Well, because of the recent spring forward, time change we just experienced. The East Coast, where I'm at, is exactly 12 hours now opposite the Philippines. Before it was 13, like it is for you right now. But because of the spring forward time change, it put me back to exactly 12 hours. Let's see, I'm trying to get a little bit closer here. Yeah, there we go. To answer your question, yeah, some of the places they took us to train. Well, here's a sequence of events. I got deployed. I was in Central California, living at the time with my wife and my son, my eldest son. And so I had 3 weeks to deploy. So instead of my wife staying in California, her family is here on the East Coast in New Jersey. That's where I'm at now. And so we decided to for her to go back to her family on the East Coast while I was over in Iraq. My son ended up staying behind and starting his life as a single young man. All right, Link, Point Link. Maraming salamat. Thank you, dear. Have a good sleep. Oh, you too, Gene. Okay. Well, your compatriot above you, Point Link, Jean, she's in the Rizal province. Oh, so anyways, whispered. So my wife goes back to the East Coast. I get deployed. They flew me from California to Camp Lejeune to start the process. Unfortunately, they got my paperwork mixed up. Imagine that. And I almost spent a month. I actually think I spent almost 1 month there at Camp Lejeune, as other classes were rotating by me and coming in and leaving. I was still behind because they lost my paperwork or something. So once they got that squared away, meanwhile, my unit, the 123 Marines in Houston, Texas, they're already deploying and moving. So they're already in 29 Palms. Well, my orders finally out of Camp Lejeune was to go to Houston, Texas and meet up with my unit. I almost want to say why they didn't know where my unit was, well, fill in the blank. They didn't get that memo, I guess. So they sent me to Houston, Texas. Well, there's nobody in Houston, Texas. So I literally got a hold of my friend in Galveston, and I had like 2 days till my flight out. So I got a hold of my friend who lives in a sailboat in Galveston, and I hooked up with him and ended up out doing a day out on his sailboat in Galveston Bay, and then went out on a Friday night partying. Ended up running into another corpsman who was also a sniper, and he was also with the 123 Marines. So the three of us went out for a night out, and then eventually we got our flight to 29 Palms. So we get to 29 Palms, we meet the 123 Marines, and let me keep so I don't miss your comments here. And then from there, we did some additional training, as you probably are referring to. We started the immunization process. It was during the anthrax year. We never did finish all the anthrax series, but we started that. And then there was some field training at a mock-up Iraqi village it was March Air Force Base. I believe it was March. It's like a 2-hour drive from 29 Palms by bus. And we went in there and just went through the motions of being inside of a building, and you know the drill. And practice. And then we went back to the 29 Palms, continued the process of getting ready, did some qualifications, M16, 9mm, just doing classes, continuing education, physicals, immunizations, the drill. And then eventually got our flight to Kuwait. Refueled in where? Germany, and then to Kuwait. I don't know. Did you get to experience Kuwait, or is it still around with the all the kiosks and the burger place and the coffee place and the and all those other small businesses? And they've got a enlisted club, I think they're in a tent city kind of type thing. Yeah. And then we got flown by CH, what is the helicopter? The transport, CH-53, into Al Assad base. I don't know if you got to experience that, but that was the worst roller coaster ride I've ever been on. That was nauseating. Yeah, turbulence beyond turbulence that I've ever experienced. So that's when we unloaded, began the hurry up and wait process there at Al Assad base before we got bussed into, or 7 tons into FOB Heat. And that was about, what, a 20-mile drive from Al Assad base? 20 or 40, I forget. We were about a 2-hour drive or hour drive to the Haditha Dam from FOB Heat. So half of our battalion stayed at FOB Heat. The other half went to Haditha Dam. And those were the two locations that we occupied while we were there. Yeah, it was a good experience. Frighteningly good experience, but the good memories outweighed the bad, I guess you could say. I had some great friendships I developed with a guy from Albania and Yugoslavia, the workers that that did our trash and cleaned our outhouses. And then we worked with 2 Iraqi interpreters. One of the Iraqi interpreters currently lives in Michigan, USA. And my wife and I and my son flew. Did we fly there or drive? We drove and reunited with Ali. And oh my gosh, tears, the whole 9 yards. 2 grown men in tears out in front of his house. It was awesome. Amazing that Ali, one of our Iraqi interpreters, ended up getting petitioned by his son in California, come to find out, who was already living in the USA, and was able to bring his father, his wife, and his son to the United States from Baghdad. And he's currently living, as far as I know, I lost touch with him right now. I've been emailing him and phone call, and his number's no longer in service, and he's not answering any emails. So I'm not sure what happened. But I got to reunite with Ali. Safwan, the other Iraqi, he was an ex-Iraqi pilot in the Iraqi Air Force. He was our other interpreter, and I wasn't able to stay in touch with Safwan. But again, that blogspot, MacKay.blogspot.com, you'll find a story, and Safwan mentioned in one of those stories as well. But yeah, it was amazing. I went to the Ford factory while we were there, and and then Ali ended up taking a train and bus to New Jersey to spend 4 days with me in my house, in this house right now. And we drove to New York City together, and we wined and dined there in New York City for a day. And it was amazing, just simply amazing to spend. Man, I'm getting goosebumps again, just thinking about it. You know, you can imagine the experience the last 7 months, you just lived your life with somebody. And we connected. You know, we were drinking coffee and eating figs and yogurt and peanut butter crackers and the little triangles of cheese and the sausages, and we were doing that as often as we could. Usually at 8:30 at night, I would head over to his hooch there on the FOB, and I'd go upstairs and spend the evening with those guys, those 4 guys, the Albanian, the Yugoslav, and the 2 Iraqi interpreters. And we'd all sit together and drink tea and coffee, and it was just talk. I would give English classes to the guy from Albania. It was awesome. So anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't give you a chance, or maybe you did and I missed it. Yeah, what brought you into the military? And yeah, how did you become a doc? I was a civilian paramedic. Oh, while you're answering that, I brought my civilian paramedic license into a recruiter's trailer at 36 years old, 2 months before my 37th birthday. And I ended up joining a program then called APG program, the Advanced Pay Grade. Come to find out that this type of program, they've been doing this since World War II, bringing civilian experience into the military. So I don't have to go through an A school, you know, and go and jump through the ranks. They brought me in as an E4, as, you know, a 3rd class petty officer, in lieu of doing my BMR and my boot camp, or vice versa, boot camp and my basic military requirements. You know the book. And that was just a formality. So I did have to go to boot camp, kind of an abbreviated 2-week boot camp there in New Orleans, Louisiana. There in NOLA, New Orleans. Actually, I think it's technically Algiers. It's just a suburb of New Orleans. And then I got sworn in down at 32nd Street in San Diego. That's my hometown, by the way. I was born and raised in San Diego. Life events have brought me wide and far throughout the United States. So yeah, I joined the military at technically 37 years old. That was the cutoff age then. It's now 42. So that's how I ended up over there at 37 years old. Yeah, you can join the military up until you're 42. Do 20 years, that'll bring you to 62. Imagine that. That's the minimum age you can be to collect Social Security, like I'm doing right now, because I just turned 62 this year. I'm sorry, last year, August. Yeah, we had a construction worker. I think he was 52 years old. That couldn't be, unless he didn't. Maybe he was 42. No, maybe he was 42. He was a construction worker from Boston, Massachusetts. And, you know, he joined the Seabees because he was a construction. That was his trade. So they applied his construction resume, skill set, right into the military. See how that works? They don't have to send him to school. You know, he can be an educator. And literally, that's what I did. When I was brought into the military as a corpsman, and they found out what I did in the civilian world, my seniors, they gave me continuing education opportunities all the time. Hey, Doc, you think you can teach a class? next drill duty. And I'm like, sure, what do you want me to teach on? Do hypothermia. Oh, I can do that. I've got one already ready, at that time from my civilian job. I had multiple classes that I used to teach ACLS, advanced cardiac life support. I could do that if they wanted me to. And then eventually I tested before I went to Iraq and got my E5. And then that's hence the rate that you recognized when you came in. Praise God again for you recognizing. Not too many people, oh, are you in the Army? Like, no, I'm not in the Army. I said, there's a clue. This and this. And of course, this, reveals my civilian past. That's what I did before I joined the Navy. I was a paramedic. I started out in San Diego. I went to Washington County, Oregon. And then I chased a lady down to New Orleans, Louisiana. Yes, that was before I joined the military. And who would know that the Navy was going to turn around and send me back to New Orleans for boot camp? Almost a stone's throw from the lady that I had just left. I'm serious, no kidding. She lived in Harahan, which is another suburb of New Orleans. I lived in Algiers. Imagine that. And they sent me back to Algiers for boot camp. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is deja vu. And, but no, I didn't hook up with her while I was in boot camp. I didn't have any desire to. So I kind of had to stay low. And thank God we didn't have really any liberty. We had one weekend that was for our own. One Saturday, Sunday. I ended up going to church on a Sunday, I think. And the Saturday, I forget what I did. But the boot camp that I attended contained just as much schooling and training that the normal boot camp, 8-week boot camp, or however long it is, contains. It's just the 8-week is it's spread out. Mine was condensed, so we didn't have time for anything. Woke up at 4:30, reported to the galley for breakfast, immediately to PT, or maybe we did PT first, and then the galley, and then after that, it was all school. We were in school from 7:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon, and then, or thereabouts. And then once we got off, we either had to iron our uniforms, yada, yada, yada. And we were spoiled as far as our berthing. We weren't on racks. We actually had enlisted berthing, the EOQ. And so we had a room, an actual like apartment room, and 4 of us were in it. So we actually had beds and a little dinette kitchen. We were spoiled. Chris, what's going on? Yeah, PT first. I don't remember. It was what, 1999. How many years ago was that? 25? 26? Yeah, 26 years ago. Yeah, is that a question mark? I was going to say, I don't think they PT'd us after we ate breakfast. So I'm going to assume we did PT first. That was only 3 days a week. In the Navy, it's just a 3-day per week requirement. Oh, I didn't want a cushy office job at the time. I wanted to do manly things. That's good. I love it. Oh, here it is. I joined out of high school. Okay, I didn't know what direction to go, really. MEPS gave me a couple choices, hospital corpsman glared at me. Then after doing some research, I was glad I chose that rate. Wow. So, I'm concerned about, now that I've been in the Navy, about the corpsmen, that are first, like yourself, that have had no prior experience in medicine and are just getting their feet wet in the military. I don't know if you, or if I remember, you said you were deployed, and how much training you had before you got deployed. That was my concern. That's what I saw, or that's where my concern lied the most, was some of the guys in my unit, they really didn't have a whole lot of experience in the medical field, in the pre-hospital medical field, or in the medical setting, period. And as far as what I had experience with in the civilian world. And they handpicked me because of that to go to FOB Heat. And they actually interviewed me prior and asked me, what did you do? What do you do in the civilian world? I told them I did this, for, at the time it was 5 years. And I had 4 years of basic EMT experience before that. So a total of 9, but as a paramedic at the advanced level, I had 5 years. And knowing what I knew and had been exposed to in bringing that skill set to Iraq, didn't do anything as far as the fear goes, but and the anxiety, that you face when you're over there. But as far as my job, I was pretty confident. It's like, what haven't I seen? I mean, literally. I've worked guns and knives clubs before. They call them guns and knives clubs, the areas of town that have a high incidence of guns and knives. I've worked senior citizen areas that were primarily senior citizen calls, and all of the medical illnesses that go along with elderly people, and everything in between. Rural areas, city areas, et cetera, et cetera. So I brought that to Iraq with me. And, I was rubbing my hands together, waiting for something, as morbid as that may sound, because that means someone has to be sick or injured for me to do work. But as you know, or as maybe you didn't know, going into the medical field, that was what it was going to entail. And those are the types of experience that either make you or break you. Some people get out of the business after they realize, okay, this is not for me, but for the select few of us, statistically, I was told less than 2% of the population, literally thrive, on this type of work. Unless that was the case for you, then you were excited, to go to work. And that was my concern, is that a lot of these guys really didn't have experience, not like what possibly they could be faced with over there. And that's why I was kind of concerned about you, is, having never done this before, and whether or not you were deployed. I still didn't hear or read that you were deployed or had an opportunity to have experience. It doesn't necessarily need to be at war. Oh, the other thing is the EMTs on bases, they don't get exposed to, what the civilian world, because they're on a base. They're not running calls out in the public. And on a base, you're not going to encounter elderly people with CHF and, respiratory illnesses and everything else that goes along with becoming old. Military people are in shape. and they're relatively young. And those are like pristine medical cases. I mean, you don't run into. So for an ambulance, quote unquote, a military ambulance, to respond to calls within a base, I could imagine you got to be bored silly, because you're just not running any calls. And that's what I found with the guys. Gotcha. The guys that I was with over in Iraq were full-time military. And the spoon that fed me, I was a civilian, and I was brought into the reserve. I signed an 8-year reserve contract. So when I was done with my 2-day weekend requirement, I went back to working as a paramedic in the civilian world. And, I was a flight paramedic. Not that really brought a whole lot of experience. That was actually quite boring. Unbeknownst to many people out there, you're not running the volume of calls in an aircraft like you are on the ground, whether it's a fixed wing aircraft or a rotor. I mean, you do experience cases, but not the volume that you do when you're on the ground. So yeah, the flight experience wasn't where I gained experience. I gained experience through the ground. So anyways, I actually started just, as you can imagine, over deployed. And when you're not doing anything, which was most of the time, most of the 7 months that I was there, you have a lot of downtime, and you're just sharing stories and doing everything that you do when you have a lot of downtime. And so I started sharing my medical experiences with these guys. And one guy in particular, this Filipino guy, he was actually our senior because he had more time and rate than the rest of us. He was also second class. He was like 20 years my junior. Almost. He was 27 and I was 42. So what? That's 15 years. And he was in charge. So I remember him hearing my stories, and I could see by his facial expressions and his body language that, he figured I was just sharing scuttlebutt, and rumors. And I recognized that that's the way he was looking. And then he started questioning me and asking for details. And I was like, what else do you want to know? And I actually got to share with him. I said, I don't know if I'm more than likely you're not running the volume of calls that I ran. And what I'm telling you is my job. This is what I did out in the civilian world. And whether or not you want to believe this or not, that's your problem. But we didn't actually see eye to eye, unfortunately. My senior, quote unquote, yeah, he had an issue with how I spent my time by myself mostly. And he didn't agree with that. And I said, well, when it comes to doing my job, I said I didn't say it, but, I could run circles around him. He was an OR tech in a hospital setting. And, the rest is history. So it was boring, but a good experience. All in all, I couldn't have had that opportunity had I not been in the military. And I literally ended my EMS career over in Iraq. I did come home and I found a job that enabled me to move back to California. I worked at the San Diego Zoo / Wild Animal Park in San Diego as a paramedic at the first aid station at the zoo. Handing out Band-Aids. And every now and then something would happen at the zoo. And I didn't even have an ambulance. I had an electric cart that carried all my ACLS equipment, all my ALS equipment, but we responded in an electric cart somewhere in the zoo or at the Wild Animal Park, different location. And then if the person needed an ambulance, then we would request one, and they would come and we would do a turnover to the ambulance and give it to them. Yeah, first class the time. Yep. Yeah, we had 2 IDC corpsmen, independent duty corpsmen, our first classes. Yep, Dr. Rocha. Here, you'll get a kick out of this. Whispered. Howard, welcome back, Howard. Thank you, bro, for coming back, Jack. This was a T-shirt that I had made there. Speaking of Kuwait, excuse me a second. And all the guys in the unit signed it before we came back. It's a little cut off because of the vertical live feed that I'm on. But this was the T-shirt that I had made. And you'll see you'll see Dr. Rocha's name. I can't talk while this is up. It just mutes me, and I can't override it. And you'll see some of the other guys. we were all known for something during the deployment. For example, I was into doing magic tricks with cards and or coins. I used to do that back in the day. And Dr. Rocha, the first class, he was the guy. He was in charge, and so he did the musters in the morning. And so he always said, "Let's go to work, boys." And then another guy made coffee, so he would say, "Is coffee ready yet?" Or no, he used to come in. One guy used to come in and ask, "Is the coffee ready yet?" And while somebody else made it. So all these sayings that we all were known for, they signed the T-shirt with what we were known for. So I'll shut up and show you the picture here. Okay. Hold on a second. I'm removing the wrong one. All right. If you want me to leave it up there longer, just let me know. But that was the Michael Wilbur. Chris. Crystal, Howard, Michael, Whispered. Oh, Charles. Wait. Oh, there we go. Oh, I don't know if you're still there, Charles, but was that like a question, or were you questioning my statement, or do you know what PT is, or I couldn't quite figure that one out. I am better than I deserve, Chris. Every day. Yes, Howard is a duck. Howard, help me again. Are you the Howard in Kentucky? Maybe I asked you this before. I got you confused. Oh no, that's your. I see you have the uh, what you call it, album cover. Iowa. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to remember. What was that gentleman's name? Wait, he might have been George. I think it might have been George. Now, what is TG Pine? Yeah, Floyd. Thank you. Pink Floyd, of course. What is TG Pine? Georgia of the jungle. Yeah, oh, you heard me say George. Yeah, I think it might have been George. Oh, Tongue and Groove. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, that smells good. I can smell it already. You say in the cabin. What cabin? Ah, you're the old chief warrant officer. Woohoo! I forgot. Oh my gosh. I told you about the CWO experience I had. He was chief warrant officer 4 or 5. Isn't that the highest? Yeah, talk to me about your cabin. Whereabouts, and well, not specifically, but and what is it? Describe it. Yeah, that's a good opportunity, Howard. Describe how you become a chief warrant officer. Yeah, 5 and was the highest. Yeah, he was either one of the two, and I ended up on the floor with him on our faces as he was screaming expletives. Those MFers. We ended up. I was in the. He was in the communications center, the CCC, and I was down there for some reason, and speaking with him while we were in the room. A vehicle IED detonated out at the gate, which is about, I don't know, about 1/8 of a mile off the FOB, out by the main highway, and it rocked. I mean, it was beyond anything that we had experienced until that time. And him and I were on the floor, literally in the dust together, and he was screaming out expletives after the fact. And off-grid power. Yeah, talk to us. So what did you oh, thank you again, Whispered. Appreciate it. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, usually in the evening, 8 p.m. until midnight, but I'm home and was bored and decided to fill my afternoon or morning with a live stream. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can look for me. If you want to subscribe, you'll get the notifications, et cetera, et cetera. But thank you again for coming in and recognizing the cover and so on. But yeah, we'll talk more later. That'll be cool. $240 square feet, 12-foot ceilings. Wow. So were you, educate all of us, because I don't remember. Were you a enlisted under a different rate, another rate before you were chief warrant officer? And why do you do chief warrant? Is it to extend your time, or what is the consideration there? What are you looking at? Okay. So that's an enlisted, correct, Howard? It's an enlisted rank, not a commissioned. Am I correct? How are you, Crystal, by the way? Sorry about that, dear. I acknowledged you coming in, but that was about it. Oh, okay. Enlisted first. Warrants are commissioned. Oh, okay. And are chief warrants all branches of the military, or only specific branches like Navy and Marines? I think Howard just clarified that for you, Mike. All right, Howard. Thank you, bro. You're in the chair now, like you're getting your hair cut? Were you prior military, Mike? Sorry about that. Oh, and the dentist. Gotcha. All right, Howard. See ya. The chair. I live streamed once from the chair at the salon getting my hair cut. Wow, we had a great turnout as far as people viewing the channel. It looked like at the beginning it was pretty flooded there, which was a nice thing. No, what he meant, Crystal, was in order to be commissioned, you need a degree, a bachelor's or above. I've said this before. I was even encouraging my spouse to become a commissioned officer. She has her bachelor's. So when I found that out, I came home. Matter of fact, I was doing my 2-week annual training there at San Diego Balboa Hospital, and came home or was talking to her on the phone from San Diego and said, you know, hey, honey, you want to become a commissioned officer in the Navy? Said, all you got to do is go to a recruiter's trailer and tell them you're a nurse and you have your bachelor's. They'll make you a commissioned officer. See you, Mike. All right, brother. Do what? Sorry, Crystal. Why didn't they do what? In earlier conflicts of wars, some 15-year-olds were having their parents sign. Oh, my knee. Oh. A what? A batch elder? What is a batch elder? How's everything, Crystal, by the way? Not to change the subject. No, we're talking about commissioned officers. Don't know if you're following that. There are two: enlisted officers and commissioned officers. Enlisted is considered to be the working, quote unquote, the working class of the military. And then the commissioned officers is the office, behind the desk, which isn't true, but that's how you can look at it. So in order to have the smarts, you need a higher level of education. Those that are leading the team. So historically, you'll see commissioned officers, they get the higher, the more, it's like that hierarchy in a king, what is that called? And queen, hierarchy, where they're up on a hilltop in a castle, and all the people around them down below them are the serfs. They're not living as well as the king and the queen are. Well, it's that hierarchy in the military is historically where that, the commissioned officers, they're the ones with the brains and the smarts. And so therefore, because of that, they get the more lavish and more comfortable berthing and quarters, whether it's on a ship or on land. And the workers underneath them is the enlisted part of that hierarchy. They're the working force. And that has continued to this day, but not necessarily that the commissioned officers don't do any work or physical work. They're embedded on the ground with the enlisted and so on and so forth as well. But just for visual clarity, to see it, commissioned officers require a degree with a bachelor's or above. Enlisted, you don't need that formal education. You just need a trade, or you get taught a trade or a skill set. What is it? Even got to burn human feces like a peasant. Yeah, there you go. I never thought of that. They're the ones that stir the feces pot. Exactly. Say what? That's not true in Alberta, Canada. They had 16-year-olds signing up. So to say that you need an education is to be a commissioned officer is not 100% true. Yes, you do. You're not understanding. To be a commissioned officer, I don't know what the requirement was back then, but I can tell you what it is today. Yes, I understand. That isn't what we're saying. What I'm saying, Crystal. That's to be a non-commissioned officer. You can join at any age, but in order to be a commissioned officer, you need a higher education. Anyways. Now you can go to school as a non-commissioned officer and get a higher education. And then once you receive your bachelor's or above, then they can send you to officer school, to commissioned officer school, or OCS. like me, is an example. I became a non-commissioned officer without a degree. The whole concept is you can become a non-commissioned officer by working your way up to that, by getting work experience. Whereas a commissioned officer doesn't need to go through the ranks to become a commissioned officer. He just has to go to school and do classroom time and get your degree, and then hence become a commissioned officer. There you go. Yeah, I wonder what the requirement is for. I didn't get to ask the gentleman that just left. You know, at what point can you become a chief warrant officer? You know, can you apply at what enlisted rate or rank, I should say? Say what? So how do non-commissioned officers get their higher education? Well, I think I just covered that. You go to school while you're in the military. You enroll and you start getting your requirements. That's the conversation I was having a week ago or so. The young guy that was asking about that, whether or not to get his education first and then join the military, or join the military and then get an education. And my recommendation was get your education now before you join. That way you're not interrupted by anything. Because once you're in the military, you know, you're at the mercy of what and where the military wants you to do and go. So if you get deployed to Africa, you know, for some peacekeeping mission or anywhere, or you get deployed to war, your education is going to come to a halt until you get back. And you just got Novocaine, so you're actually on your phone. What the heck? Yeah, okay, and got to clear this up. Yeah, please, Howard. There's a lot of scuttlebutt going on here. People talking for you. I was like, wait a minute. The guy was a chief warrant officer. Correct. Am I correct, just to verify? If you're going to be a commissioned officer, you need a bachelor's or above. At least that's what I was told when I went into my recruiter's office. In order to become a lieutenant JG, you need a bachelor's or above. Oh, please, Howard, help. Correct. That's right. That's what I was saying. That's what I was trying to explain. You know, that historically it's, that's why they say, you know, whenever you salute or say sir to an enlisted person, the answer is, you know, I work for a living. And that's why. That's where that comes from. Not that commissioned officers don't work, but that's the, right? In the Canadian Armed Forces, You generally need a minimum of 3 years in grade and a total of 12 years of service. There you go. That answered my question. I figured it was something like that. You know, at what point can you become a chief warrant officer? And in the Canadian Armed Forces, a lieutenant outranks a CW05. That's right. I would imagine that's history. That's the military. You know, that's the whole concept, the separation between enlisted and commissioned. Whereas we know that the CW05 obviously, you know, salutes a lieutenant, not vice versa, even though the 05 has more than likely much more experience than the lieutenant, JG. I don't know. I actually was never deployed on peacekeeping, but I was only deployed once, and that was to Iraq. But I pity lieutenant giving crap. See what I said? You just took the words right out of my mouth. Yep. But technically, and Howard knows, when you're walking across the base, and Howard encounters a lieutenant, he's saluting the rank. He's not necessarily saluting the person. Right? And Howard salutes first. Yeah, it's the whole ranking history behind the military. And you know, and the whole concept is appropriate and necessary. You know, the formality is what the military holds to this day. And they'll let you know when you get out of line. Right, Howard? That's right. Well, absolutely. Around a colonel. Yeah, see? Yeah, I understand. That's exactly what we're taught. And it's not about you're putting yourself lower. It's the whole concept behind, you know, for example, President Trump, you know, he's the commander in chief. Okay, he holds that rank. So whether you like him or not, you respect the rank. Respect your president, no matter who it is. That's the whole concept. You see, and people don't want to, especially civilians, they don't grasp that concept. Right. Yep. You know, that was one of the reasons why I joined the military, because I didn't have an understanding about a lot, number one, and I wanted to know more as to the who, what, where, and why. Or like I said in my blog, I wanted to be able to say, I know where you're coming from to another military member, where before I had no clue. You know, I didn't even know why we needed a military, you know, as a country. Literally, as embarrassing that might be, for me to actually tell you, you know, why we have a military for our country. That's a good question, though, Crystal. That's a great question. Gotta smoke. I love it. Look. Oh, I love it. Doc is here. Gotta pop smoke. Gotta pop smoke later. That's a good question, though. We did here when I was deployed. I can tell you personal experience to answer that question. Again, my deployment was the most boring camp out of my life. It really was. I mean, there was so much downtime. You literally get cabin fever. I was in an 1/8 mile round of barbed wire. 1/8 of a mile, the Marines figured out, was the entire perimeter of my FOB. You could run around it 8 times and do 1 mile. And that's how they did their laps. That's how they determined how far they ran. 8 times around the FOB was 1 mile. So a very small spot on the map. And you can't really be going outside of it. Although the Iraqi National Guard compound was outside the wire. So we did have to go over there to do some continuing education. Speaking of CEs, we call them. So there were opportunities for me to go over to fill in the downtime, got to do something, to do continuing education, either for our troops or for the Iraqi National Guard. And we would give first aid training, teach them what a tourniquet, the indications for a tourniquet is, how to do basic bandaging and splinting. I would give a continuing education to my unit, you know, on something. What in the world is that? So anyhow, as far as required to do education, well, only if your superiors told you you were required to do something. You know, if they were about to do excuse me. Oops, I just paused that. I wanted to delete it. There we go. Like if we were about to go on an operation or a patrol or something, and there was here, for example, we were going into the city of Heat, and they do an analysis of the whole, speaking of commissioned officers, they get together with the enlisted and they start going over the whole plan, of how it's going to go, how we're going to insert, how we're going to get out of there, what we're going to do while we're in the city. That's for the higher ups to figure that out. And then they pass that on to the enlisted guys or their officers. And then we go out into the field and we do like a mock-up. We go over what it is we're going to be doing, or what the scenario might be if we encountered a certain situation. So they literally go out on the FOB somewhere in an open spot in the field, and they get the group the guys together, and they start going over, okay, here guys, here's what we're going to be doing. We might encounter a choke point when we go into the city. And as far as we can see, there might be some problems fitting all of us through that narrow part into the city. And here's what we're going to do. So that would be an example of like continuing education that we are required to do. It's like the word gets out that we're going to be meeting over at point A at a certain time of the day, and we don't know why we're going to be meeting over there. All we know is that we were told to go over there. And then once we get over there, then the officers are like addressing us. Okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to be going into the city, and there's a potential choke point. I'm actually telling them the exact same thing we did, the exact thing that we did. And they just kind of like put people in position and kind of mock up scenario of how it's going to go. And so that type of education, we were required to do. But as far as like school education, that's just stuff you can take care of if you have time to do it. We had access to computers, if we had access to computers, and you could go online and do some continuing education, or maybe you've got a degree that you're pursuing and you're doing online classes. You could do it while you're on the computer, on the laptop, something like that. Oh, for mental health? My treatment was to spend time with that group that made me comfortable, where I could just get a little taste of home and just regular human being relationship type stuff with people, and talk and do what I considered normal stuff, like telling stories or talking about each other's lives, or teaching English to a guy from Albania, and laughing and drinking coffee. And I guess that would be considered, how I took care of my mental health. Yeah, just trying to be like a normal, going about your normal daily routine after work, in your downtime, although you're never really done with work. But if that answers your question. After the deployment, they put us through, I guess what you would call, it was a physical, but it was like a mental health evaluation, whatever good that did, where I sat in front of a female officer, doctor, and she basically quizzed me and, do you have any desire to hurt yourself or anybody else? Or, so how are you doing? And I ended up kind of copying an attitude with her, and she put me in my place. I didn't mean to. It's just the way, I don't know. I was really defensive when I got home from Iraq, and to sit in front of somebody and I guess the question she was asking me kind of triggered me, and I ended up pretty pissed off with my answers. A mock city evacuation? No way. That doesn't sound possible. I don't know about it in Canada, but all over here in the United States, there's something put in place to, I guess you could say, to help out in the event of having to evacuate a city. And you'll see signs on the roads showing evacuation shelters and routes, signs to get out of the city, and or radio emergency broadcasts in the event of an emergency. But other than actually taking place, physically doing something like that? No. Oh, and the other philosophy that you learn in the Navy, at least the Navy, is exactly what the letters that Navy uses to spell itself, and that is NAVY. You learn means never again volunteer yourself. And so when it comes to that physical, for example, after my deployment and sitting in front of the dock, my best, actually, we were told this while we were in Iraq by our first class, that we were going to be encountering a doc that was going to do a mental health evaluation as part of the demobilization process. And his advice was exactly what I just said. Never again volunteer yourself. He said, be careful what information you volunteer when the doctors are evaluating you. He said, I'm not telling you what to do, but what is the expression? Silence is a virtue. Because the minute you start, answering what they want to hear, or you start saying, yeah, actually, I am kind of feeling a little suicidal today, there's red flag pops up. Next thing you know, you're jumping through the hoops of mental health, more evaluations and steps and processes. Not to say that you're going to get help and needed help, but you get the drift. Be careful what you volunteer yourself for. Where are you coming up with these questions, Crystal? It's like a test. It's like I'm taking a test. It's like, this is going to take too long. And I thought a 300 question test for my paramedic exam was long. It took me, you had 3 hours to answer 300 questions. I think I took an hour and a half or 2 hours, just over 2 hours. But some people were getting done in an hour or an hour and a half. And I thought, oh my gosh, where am I going? What am I doing wrong? Kind of reminds me of it's okay. Feels when people keep making them repeat their story. Wait, what? About the questions, but this is how a child and adult feels when people keeps making them repeat their story. What story? What are you talking about? I'm trying to think. I've never asked my kids to repeat their story unless I didn't hear them. And I say, what? What did you say? "14 people viewing. Awesome. Who else is out there? Pop in and just say hello. Say, present. Let's see how many presents we can get in the room. Jack, oh my gosh, Zach, where have you been? Brother, are you working? Are you home? Are you on your lunch break? Wait, you're in, Kentucky. Wait, Zach. Michigan. Wait, gosh, how come I all of a sudden Michigan, right? Oh my gosh. It's been too long, Zach. Why am I forgetting where you're at? I haven't been on in a while, so it's probably why. Hey, speaking of, or what I've been doing on my off time, I was out fishing yesterday out on the lake, and it was an absolutely gorgeous day yesterday. You know, it's still not spring weather, but it's getting there. And the temperature was incredible. Oh, I got another story to tell. Speaking of something that happened yesterday. So I'm out on the lake fishing, and it turned out, at least at 2:30, the water temperature actually went from 48 degrees up to 54. And as soon as it got to be about 53, 52, 53 degrees, I all of a sudden got a bite. I mean, not just a bite, but I mean, this whole area that I was in, like a 100-foot circle, was just lit up with activity. I ended up landing 5 fish, either 4 or 5 fish in 30 minutes, 2 bass and 3 pickerel. And I was just like, I ain't leaving this spot, man. This is like lit up. And I was casting in a 360-degree circle. And that was at 2:30 in the afternoon. And the water temperature actually went up, like I said, a little further to 54. Yeah. So I'm out on the water, right? And I'm in a hot spot. So, and I've got my kayak locked on a spot because I've got a spot lock on my trolling motor. So it's just holding me to. And all of a sudden I hear this. I mean, now you got a picture where I'm at. I'm on a college campus. The state college is just 2 miles down the road. And I frequently hear kids it's in the midst of I am in the midst of a forest. I mean, there's nothing but oak and maple and pines all around me. The oak and pine barrens are renowned for this. This area is renowned for those. And so everything's been clear cut, and homes have been built. And I live in the midst of. I actually live on a cul-de-sac, and it's surrounded by forest. Although there's city streets right on the other side of the street. On the other side, there's an airport right over there. There's another housing development over there, etc. But trees blocks my vision. So with knowing that, that's the same with the college campus. Big area's been clear cut, and there's a college campus in the middle of the woods. And it also has some really beautiful bodies of water on the campus. And one of them is a lake that I go out on. So in the trees are bike paths and footpaths going from point A to point B throughout the campus. And there's one path that goes around the lake. It's a dirt trail. And there's kids always walking those paths. And I'll hear everything from hoots and hollers to people singing to giggling to screaming to everything. I actually, it sounds like I'm in a grade school at times. And I always wonder, it's like, wait a minute, I'm on a college campus. why are the kids acting this way? It's like, they're out of high school now. But anyways, that being said, so yeah, within 30 minutes, dear, that's a lot of fish. Sometimes you go 8 hours, and catch nothing. So 5 fish in 30 minutes, that was out of control. It was just like I was hooting and hollering, and I was like a kid in a candy store. So anyhow, so to hear these sounds in the forest is not unusual. Well, all of a sudden, while I'm just like a kid in a candy store, I hear this, "Help me! I need help!" And I'm thinking, okay, and what's new? Another sound in the forest. So, of course, it got my attention in this direction. And I'm trying to look to make sure I'm not missing anything. And all I can see is the edge of the lake. And so the college campus is the hot spot. At least the lake for fishing is. At least it was yesterday. And really it is, because I keep going back because it produces quite often. So anyhow, so it's got my attention. The voice has my attention, and I'm looking over there on the side. It's not a very big lake. I'm about an eighth of a mile to the edge of the lake on the other side. And it's just lined with trees. So I can't see the bike path. They got a paved bike path. And I don't see anybody. And I'm looking around to see if there's anybody else around. And I see 2 people over on the bridge. There's a bridge by the dam where the water goes underneath and spills down into the creek on the other side. There's 2 people over there on the bridge. So I'm looking at them to see if they're looking where I'm looking. And they are. It got their attention, and they're looking down the bike path. So I'm looking at them to see if they start walking, because I'm trying to make a decision. Okay, do I leave my fishing spot and motor on over to the other side of the lake? Again, I can only go 3 miles per hour with this trolling motor, but it's not far, and I can get there in less than 5 minutes. So do I go over there? And I don't normally respond to these types of things anymore. You might wonder why. I'll tell you in a minute, but or a motor vehicle accident, for example. Yeah, I stay away from motor vehicle accidents. And I used to do it for a living, but anyhow, I'll tell you in a minute. So I see the people looking in the direction that I'm looking. So I'm waiting for them to see if they're going to stop what they're doing. It looks like they're just talking. Are they going to stop talking and start walking down towards that voice? At least where I think the voice is coming from. And they do. They do leave the bridge and start walking in that direction. So I'm thinking, cool. Somebody's taking care of it. I don't need to leave my fishing spot. So I continue fishing. And within a minute, I hear it again. "Please help me." And I thought, okay, those people should be there by then, but this voice is still yelling for help. And it doesn't sound like somebody's just playing around. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna head over there. So again, I'm just puttering 3 miles per hour, if that, into the wind. And I eventually get over to the other side of the lake. And by this time, emergency lights I can see in the background. And I thought, well, I think that answered my question as far as the legitimacy of this cry for help. And then I see the vehicle come up on the grass and starts driving over. Now they can only get to a certain point because the bike path is not big enough for a vehicle. And then the person in the vehicle gets out and I can see police on the side of the door, and he's got his defibrillator in his hand. And I thought, okay, wonder what's happening. So, it's the basic, that's what they carry. Or what are you observing? Oh, you didn't catch that part of the story, Crystal? I'm fishing and I hear a voice on the other side of the lake crying for help. So I was trying to make a decision. Do I leave my fishing spot and go inquire, or do I let somebody else do it? So I'm already on the other side of the lake now, and I see EMS arrive. And so I get out of my boat, and the police officers passing me and meets eye contact with me. And he said, "Where is he?" And I said, "I don't know. I came over to see who's crying for help." I said, "Is it an adult?" And he said, "Yes." And his eyeballs are looking. He says, "I see him down there." I said, "Okay, well," I said, "I used to be a paramedic." I said, "I might be able to help. I'll be there in a minute." So I secured my boat, got out through the water, waded in the water, went up on the trail. I had my PFD, my flotation device, still on. I didn't take that off yet. And I'm heading down the bike path. And eventually I get over to him, and it's a young kid. He's 21 years old, and he's laying flat on his back, and he looks fine. But apparently he had some history of heart palpitations and anxiety attacks and yada, yada, yada. Nothing too emergent. And so I went ahead it's been 20 years, but I did what I know to do, and made sure he had a heart rate and his skins were, pink, dry, and pink, dry, and warm, and asking him questions. What's going on? And has this ever happened before? Yada, yada, yada. And apparently he had a history of anxiety, and he had another one and decided to lay down and cry for help. So, and then eventually an ambulance arrives, and they bring their gurney, and I give them a turnover. And then I said, "Hey guys, I got a boat waiting for me down there. I got to go." "Okay, thank you very much." And that was that. So he wanted to go to the hospital. So hence the reason why an ambulance came. And he was on a medication for it in the past, but he was no longer on it. So, typically that's called non-compliant with his medications. And as to if that's the reason why he's still experiencing these events, who knows? But sounds like he needs to be put back on his propanolol, which is, I'd never heard that before. My wife has. I asked her actually later that evening. She was familiar with it. And I went, "Oh, well, sound like a blood pressure medicine to me." But she's like, "No, it's for tachycardia, fast heart rate." And I was like, "Huh, never heard that before. Propanolol." So what is here, look it up for me, Zach. What is the other names for propanolol? Do they have a generic name for propanolol? What is propanolol? Sounds like what do they call it? What do they give for anxiety? The very common not over the counter, prescribed. I just said Xanax. Is that what Xanax is? Inderol. Well, I know what Inderol is. Wait. Common brands, Inderol. Hemangiol Inderol XL. What is it? Is it a beta blocker, or what is it? It can treat high blood pressure, chest pain, angina. Right. Yeah, atrial fib, and uneven heartbeat, or atrial fib. Okay, that's why propanolol. It's been a while, but never heard it prescribed for anxiety or fast heart rate. It's a beta blocker. Okay. What in the Crystal? Are you okay? Are you okay? It's like, what? Where are you? You're stuck on this hot spot. No, a hot spot. I was referring to fishing, a fishing hot spot, meaning I was getting lots of bites. Okay. Are you sober, Crystal? You're starting to worry me. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just having a good time. Yes, it's a good fishing hole. It was too, Zach. Although there's no deep, well, there are some deep spots in the lake, but this particular area was pretty much the same. It's an old cranberry bog that's been filled up by damming up one end of the creek, and it flooded this half-mile by quarter-mile section of land. And the average depth of that entire lake is about 3 feet. Honestly, if that, 2 feet. Very shallow. And it's got a few spots that have 5 feet to 8 feet. Over by the dam, more like 8 feet. And then this one area that I was near has a depth of like 5 feet. But other than that, you can literally get out and sink 3 feet into the muck of decomposed vegetation at the bottom. There's just as much vegetation as there is water. So you can be 2 feet of water and 2 feet of bog underneath you. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's lots of great fishing up there in the north. Yeah. Wow, even an ice fishing championship. Was the whole lake filled with tents? Probably. Heated tents, right? They're getting high speed with those ice fishing tents. Yeah. Tents, trucks, turbines, you name it. I love it. Out on a frozen lake. You got to do what you got to do. Indorol. Yeah. Gosh, it's funny. I haven't heard of propanolol in such a long time, though. It was like foreign. I remember, speaking of repeating yourself, Crystal, I don't know how many times I asked him to repeat what he was saying. It's like I was hearing it, but I'm like, it wasn't registering. I was like, what? Who? Propanolol. Because, it's not uncommon for the layperson to not know what the medication is that they're not able to pronounce the medication that they are taking themselves. And they'll say it with what they know of it to say, or that it says, and it's not the correct word. So I was trying to read in between the lines with this word that he was saying, and it just wasn't registering. Like, gosh, I've never heard of this. But now that I've said it 10 times, propanolol, it used to be a common medication, I think, that I had seen or heard of when I was out in the field. Indorol kind of even sparked a memory when you said that. Yep. Oh, they actually, see, they make it an official event, and then they do a standby. What the EMTs were doing there, Zach, I used to do all the time. Not ice fishing, though. That's something new. But wherever there's people, especially if it's an organized event, in order to make an event like that, the insurance requirements require that EMS is available. Because wherever there's a group, a mass of people, especially out on a lake, a frozen lake, the chances of injury or illness is there. So liability wise, it's very typical that they need an EMT on standby. And I used to do standbys all the time. Motocross events, drag strips, football games, what else? You name it. Sporting events, any sporting events. Whenever there's it's an organized event where there's going to be a mass of people. I don't know, maybe there's a requirement as far as how many people, then you need, EMS. Yeah. Those are usually pretty good gigs to do standbys, because usually there's something to watch, or if there isn't anything to watch, such as an ice fishing event, you might be able to get out on foot with your radios and be able to walk around and actually participate, or at least become part of the event, at least, in an indirect way. It's giving yourself something to do, something visually, stimulating. And you can only wander away from so far from your ambulance in the event that you get a call and then you have to respond. But and they're usually paying a little extra money for doing standbys. And so if you can secure a standby event, then the opportunity to make a little extra money is there. So. But yeah, so anyway, so the fishing actually, I made note of what time it was and the water temperature. And I realized, I don't know if this is for sure, but it makes sense that the fish got more active the warmer the water got. And I noted the temperature of the water. It was 52 when I got the bite, and it went up to 54. And it was 2:30 in the afternoon. So I decided, instead of going out in the morning when it's below 50, that is below 50 water temperature. And it was 32 degrees when I went out. And it went up to 64 yesterday. I don't know if it got that warm. It didn't feel that warm. But so that made me think, my afternoon session is going to be the time to go. After like 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and I can stay till dark. And that's 6-ish. Or what's the sundown now? Alexa, what time is sundown?
Sunset in Pomona will be at 7:02 p.m.
Oh, it's at 7 o'clock tonight. So, yeah, I can do 2 to 7. That'll give me plenty of hours to spend out there. That's what I normally do anyways, because I'm a late sleeper. So I'll go out in the afternoon and stay till dark. And that's typically when I'm fishing anyway. So morning, I was there at like 9 or 10, around 9. And there was nothing until 2. Actually, it was 10 o'clock when I got out there. And so at straight up noon, nothing was biting. So I decided to take a break for lunch. I ended up going into the campus. This is a normal thing that I'll do. I found there's two options. There's an actual convenience store right next to the lake, like within 100 feet or 100 yards. And it's like a little 7-Eleven type place, but it's on the campus. They call it the Lodge. And it's a little convenience store with a deli bar. And there's a lady back there making sandwiches. And with all the cold cooler section and the racks of, typical stuff. And there's a grill. where they make, you know, hamburgers and hot foods in the same building. Or on the other side of the campus, on the other side of the lake, where I actually responded to that help call, I'll secure my kayak at the shore there and walk to the cafeteria, the campus cafeteria. And that is like when it's actually, I found out yesterday, it's spring break already for that campus. So a lot of things were closed. That convenience store was closed. So I went to the other side of the lake, got out, went to the cafeteria, and it was partially open, meaning they've actually got a Carl's Jr. inside, and that was closed. But they had a hot food section and the refrigerated stuff available. So I went ahead and got a Caesar chicken salad and a water, and sat inside the cafeteria, which is, it's a grand, uh-oh, I just lost the TV. Stand by. I can't see anything. It's all black. Uh-oh, what happened? Still black here. There we go. Will you stop, Crystal? Gosh, what in the world? Now, see, I got to clarify something a little different than what, like, if you didn't already know this, Zach, when you're putting bait on a line, you know what? I might have to reset. This thing is really lagging. We call that letting a line soak. You're literally just rigging up the line with bait and tackle, and you're dropping it into the water, and you put the pole down, and you just sit back and you watch it. That's called letting it soak. Well, what I do is active fishing all day long. Never stopping. Well, I shouldn't say never stopping. Never stop moving. I'm casting and I'm reeling. And then when I reel it in, I cast it again and I reel it in. I'm imitating live bait with artificial bait. As you know, we call them soft plastics or swim baits or crankbaits. Baits that imitate real bait or live bait. So in order to make them react and respond, you need to reel them in and make them imitate, a live bait. So you're constantly casting and you're hunting for fish. You're trying to analyze your surroundings and the terrain. Not only the shore terrain, but what's in the water and what's underneath the water. And so you're constantly trying to put yourself in the fish position. If I was a fish, where would I hide? And then you're seeking those spots and you're casting at those spots. So it's just active fishing. So I'm never just dropping a line in and letting it soak. And I'm constantly moving, relocating. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's another type of fishing. That's actually what I was raised with. Baiting a lure or a hook and then just throwing it in and waiting for whatever was there at the bottom to get a hold of it. Oh, my whole screen went black again. You know what, guys? Because of the what I'm experiencing right now, I'm going to go ahead and end this, and that way I can reset the TV and give it a break. It's kind of overworked itself. It's been 2 hours, 41 minutes. So I am going to put on Zach's favorite outro and put an end to this this live stream. But again, guys, ladies, gentlemen, thank you for all your support, being in here. Don't forget to like if you didn't already. And maybe I'll be on tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. 8 p.m. to midnight, and or any other random times that I end up going live. Okay, let's do this. Zach, get your guitar ready. Here we go. Is it gonna play? There it goes. Here we are. Let's put the volume up. Woohoo! Later, Zach. Bye, Crystal. Everybody out there watching. Looks like we got a good turnout today, or this afternoon, this morning. So I'll see you either tonight and or Friday. Later, guys. It's been real. It's been fun. And it looks like I gotta set my outro. So let's do it. Once again, as you were,